Okay, we're gonna try this again. I did try using Cam Studio, but unfortunately, the file size is absolutely massive. It wouldn't even save because it's over the 4 gigabyte maximum file size because it just uses a single file. So we're gonna try this again using a different software. So this is my second time now presenting, so I apologize, and hopefully this works out okay. My name is Pete. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. My name is Pete Chadzik, and I'm an Athabasca student taking COMP482, which is HCI, Human Computer Interactions. And this is assignment 3, specifically the video, which is just going to be me walking you through the project and the assignment. Let's start maybe with the project scope and purpose. And so, really, the goal of this application is just to really kind of connect employees with their work and provide them with a clear sense of direction, and specifically, so that um, they know exactly what to do and when they're doing it. That was kind of the idea behind it. And the second part was to improve the communication between like supervisors and employees in their work as well, just through visualization. So what that means is, rather than having to read emails of like what to do, what needs to be done, and double checking things, an employee could just instead um, look at exactly on their dashboard and see things, as I like to call it, at a glance, meaning right away without having to read through information or digest information. And that was kind of the main, I guess, impetus for this. So there's kind of four parts to this. The first one were the phases of how this was developed, which kind of began with that idea, these goals, and then how we can do that or help the employees reach that. And so that was really all about this task-based system. And the task-based system basically works like this, where you you kind of put yourself in the user's shoes, and you try and think of something that you want to accomplish using this software application. And so that becomes a task, is this thing you want to accomplish. But then while you're accomplishing these things, um, because you're embodying the user, you also embody the user's maybe experience or technical expertise or lack thereof. And so you kind of try and channel that through for these tasks to try and figure out maybe where some of the roadblocks are. And so the requirements part is derived from essentially these roadblocks or issues that users might run into, whereby if you can kind of visualize or anticipate these roadblocks, then you come up with things that the system actually should be able to do to to get around these roadblocks or issues in advance. And then you test all the requirements that you've created by conducting kind of like walkthroughs for each one. And I will walk you through how I did the walkthroughs. Yeah, so we will go through it. So essentially, in a walkthrough, what I did anyway for my uh, MO was to kind of, as I said, put myself in the shoes of each user. And really the key for me was to kind of slow down because, of course, I'm navigating through this application knowing it quite well. But I tried to slow down and instead pretend I didn't know anything about it. And so I tried to kind of imagine that I was a new person trying to figure things out. What would they consider? What would they look at? Which parts would they read? Which parts stick out of the application at them? And one of the things that really helped me with that strategy was to kind of talk aloud because I could literally actually speak to, oh, this is what I'm considering. I'm reading this. Hey, what about this thing here? I wonder if it does whatever. And as I was talking aloud, I was getting more and more into the character of these users, and then I was able to walk through kind of each particular requirement or function that had to be done. And so with each time that I'm doing this, I was asking myself questions of like, do I actually have the knowledge of how to do this, or do I even want to do this? That's where the idea of motivation comes in. Um, is the user actually motivated or incentivized to do what you're asking them to do, or is it just something that the developers have kind of told them to do, and, and they don't really want to get behind the behavior or knowing why? So if we talk about the actual software itself or the application and how it was put together, initially I actually built the first model with React, and this was kind of cool because it allowed things to be loaded dynamically. React is a really cool framework or library for JavaScript, which allows basically these templates or blueprints to be created for DOM objects, and then they get populated with data, which actually worked really well in this case because I was able to kind of like live populate from a JSON file into these tasks. But one of the restrictions of this particular project, and I kind of understand a little bit of where they're coming from, is the idea that you want the scripting or programming language to be pure so that there's no like outside help brought in. And so unfortunately, I had to restrict it to kind of vanilla only JavaScript, and that kind of restricted the end product. And I'll talk about that a little bit. And so I ended up deciding to use just HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. The downside of this is that um, it's quite limiting in the sense of what you can do for persistence of data and information and like re-rendering the DOM and that kind of thing. But the upside is that it will literally run on any browser. You can just have these files as long as they're all in the same folder. It's really easy to run. So that part's nice. Um, I will get back to this part in a second, to the demo. I'm just going to change the order slightly because of the way this recording works. But one of the things I want to talk about first was I did consider the other options for programming this. So I thought maybe about using C++ and Python, which are the other options offered by the course. I'm quite familiar with those programming languages, and I've never personally seen any good GUIs come out of them without like additional libraries that those programs use. Natively, GUIs are very, very difficult to do in those without the libraries. Um, and so my options were essentially I could just kind of downscale this project and turn it in like a command line interface type thing. Um, and that could still work. You still could have menus for the employees that they could access and see, and then see the work that's assigned to them, and have like while loops of like this is what's going on right now, and it populating in certain orders, and that could work. But the in my mind, the real essence of this, like the users that are going to be using this system, are not ones that are going to be necessarily tech savvy, not people that like command line interfaces or CLIs, or typing these things and making sure they type the right thing. And there's a lot of the idea in HCI of this, you know, doing it by recognition rather than remembering. So if somebody can recognize something, it's much easier for them than to have to remember it from scratch. And so all that kind of led me in the direction of doing an actual user interface, a graphic user interface, which meant I had to use the JavaScript version. And so the end product is mostly like a static prototype because with vanilla there's only so much you can do. But I still think that was the better option over reducing this just to a command line interface. Okay, so I will bring up the demo here. All right, so this is kind of the basic, I guess, area that users would interact with. There's these tasks, and you can see they're ordered by um, how high a priority they are. So red being the highest priority, yellow medium, and green is lowest, which I think is kind of intuitive a little bit, where users are kind of used to seeing those colors and associating red with like red lights and really important, and pay attention to red right away. So that was kind of the inspiration. There is some like user feedback built into it as well. You can see that as you hover over these items, the color changes, and so that right away lets users know that this is actually a button that they can interact with. And if they were to click on this, it would take them to the details screen, where this is kind of the header information. And then here's the more detailed stuff of what it is that they want you to do, when it's due by, and who is created by. And so again, you can assign it from there, or you can just go back and cancel. And again, the buttons are somewhat interactive. Um, and of course, the same thing goes for this other task. This one here, actually, maybe I'll focus a little bit on this. So this one's already in progress. You can see it's 30% in progress. It's due by April 5th. And if we click on it, you'll see there's a new button here, which is called Unassign. And this wasn't present on these other ones because, of course, you can't unassign something if it's already waiting. So there is an option now to unassign it. But one of the things we built in to the requirement was that if users misclick or if they create an error, they should be able to fix that. And so if you were to accidentally click this, this window comes up, which is, are you sure you want to return this task to waiting? And so this message is quite specific. It's specific to the task, or sorry, to the action you're performing. So, if you were to assign something, it might say, "Are you sure you want to assign this task to in progress?" So the message is actually telling you what you're about to do. And in this case, you're like, "No, no, this was an accident." So you might click no, um, and we will cancel that. And that's kind of mostly it for the functionality of it. Like I said, in a perfect world, we could move these between completed or in progress and that kind of stuff. But there's just only so much we can do with the vanilla JavaScript. Um, yeah, so that was kind of it. I do think there actually is, and I'm sure there are applications, real life applications that are much better at this. And there's probably a market out there for tracking actual work and workloads and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think there is a user base for that. So it was a really, really fun project to work on. Um, yeah, I think that's it. And thanks very much for your time.